Hey everyone, welcome back to Edu Expert, your smart learning hub. Hi everyone, today, I'm super excited to share something very special with you, my very first airplane journey. When I arrived at the airport for the very first time, it felt as if dreams and reality were blending into one. I held my ticket and passport tightly in my hands, but my heartbeat was racing so fast that I could almost hear it echo inside me. The bright airport lights, people rushing with their heavy suitcases, families hugging and saying their goodbyes, and the constant sound of announcements created a scene that felt straight out of a movie. A part of me was nervous, afraid that I might do something wrong, but at the same time, there was this bubbling excitement inside me, knowing that I was about to board a plane for the very first time. Walking through the entrance, it felt like I had stepped into another world, a world I had only seen in my dreams. At the check-in counter, I kept glancing down at my documents, making sure everything was in place, almost as if I needed to reassure myself every few seconds. Holding my passport tightly, I whispered in my heart, yes, it's really happening. Around me, I saw other passengers walking with such confidence, as if this was just another ordinary day for them. But for me, every moment felt extraordinary, every corner of the airport was full of wonder. The giant screens displaying flight schedules, the uniformed security officers checking everything calmly, and the laughter of families waiting for their flights, each detail was etched into my memory. Finally, when I held my boarding pass in my hand, a strange mix of relief and excitement washed over me. It was more than just a piece of paper, it was the gateway to a dream. At that moment, I realized this wasn't just the beginning of a journey, it was the start of a memory I would cherish forever. After finishing the check-in and security process, I finally held my boarding pass in my hand, and with it came a strange mix of relief and nervousness. It was as if that small piece of paper carried the weight of a dream I had been waiting for. As I walked deeper into the airport, the long hallways opened up in front of me, filled with travelers moving in every direction. Some people were sitting calmly, sipping coffee and reading books, while others rushed past me with children and heavy bags, hurrying to catch their flights. For me, every step felt slow, heavy with excitement, as if I was walking into another chapter of my life. The giant screens hanging above caught my attention, rows and rows of flight numbers and destinations flashing in bright letters. My eyes quickly searched for my flight, and when I finally saw my number with the words, "On time," next to it, I couldn't help but smile. It was a small confirmation that everything was going exactly the way I had hoped. As I continued walking, the atmosphere around me felt magical. The soft buzz of conversations, the rolling sound of suitcases on the floor, and the constant announcements echoing through the air made me feel like I was part of something bigger. Each turn brought me closer to my gate, and then finally, there it was, the boarding gate, with a line of passengers waiting patiently. Through the large glass windows beside it, I caught my very first close-up view of the airplane I was about to board. My heart skipped a beat. Seeing its massive wings and shining body felt unreal. In that moment, I realized that the dream of flying was no longer far away, it was right there, waiting for me. The moment finally came when the boarding announcement echoed through the speakers, and my heart started racing all over again. People stood up, forming a line at the gate, and I slowly joined them, clutching my boarding pass as if it were a treasure map. When the staff scanned it in, smiled at me with a polite, "Have a nice flight," I felt a wave of excitement wash over me. This was it. I was really stepping onto a plane for the very first time. Walking through the jet bridge felt surreal. The air smelled faintly of aviation fuel mixed with something new, something I had never experienced before. Each step echoed in my head, almost like a drumroll leading up to the grand moment. And then, suddenly, I was inside. The airplane cabin stretched before me, bright and neatly arranged, with rows of seats lined up on both sides. My eyes widened. It was exactly like the scenes I had seen in movies, yet it felt so much more alive, so much more personal. The flight attendants greeted me with warm smiles, and their calm presence made me feel a little less nervous. As I searched for my seat, I noticed other passengers already settling in, some placing their bags in the overhead bins, some fastening their seatbelts, and some gazing out the windows like me, full of anticipation. When I finally found my seat and sat down, I pressed myself against the window. The outside view was breathtaking, the enormous wings stretching out beside me and the runway glistening in the sunlight. I placed my hand gently on the armrest, feeling both nervous and thrilled. In that quiet moment, I thought to myself, this isn't just a seat on a plane. This is the seat where my dream of flying begins. As I settled into my seat, fastening the seatbelt tightly across my lap, a hush of anticipation filled my chest. The captain's voice came over the speakers, calm and reassuring, announcing that we were ready for departure. My hands gripped the armrests as the plane slowly began to move, taxiing along the runway. Through the window, I watched the world outside shifting, the airport buildings passing by, the ground crew waving, the other planes standing tall like giants waiting for their turn. Every second made my heart beat faster. Then came the moment. The engines roared with a deep, thunderous sound, vibrating through the cabin. The plane began to race down the runway, faster and faster, and I felt myself pushed gently back into my seat. My chest tightened with a mix of fear and wonder. The ground outside blurred, the speed overwhelming, and then, suddenly, it happened. The wheels lifted, and for the first time in my life, I was no longer on the ground. A shiver ran through me. I pressed my face against the window and gasped. The airport shrank beneath us, the cars on the roads looked like tiny toys, and the city stretched out like a miniature map. Clouds floated closer, until it felt as if we were rising straight into a dream. There was a moment of silence inside me, as if the world had paused. The fear I carried melted into pure amazement. My first takeoff wasn't just about flying. It was about letting go of the ground I had always known and discovering a new kind of freedom in the sky. At that very moment, I realized, once you experience the magic of rising above the earth, your heart will never forget it. The moment of takeoff was unlike anything I had ever felt before. As the plane began to roll down the runway, my heart raced faster than the engines roaring beneath me. I held the armrests tightly, my palms slightly sweaty, as if I needed to anchor myself for what was about to happen. The acceleration grew stronger with every passing second, pushing me gently back into my seat. The runway outside blurred, lights flashing past like streaks in a dream, and then suddenly, I felt it. The wheels lifted off the ground. For the very first time in my life, I was no longer connected to the earth. A rush of emotions surged through me, fear, wonder, excitement, all tangled together in a single heartbeat. I glanced out of the window, and my breath caught in my throat. The airport, once so huge, now looked tiny. Cars on the roads seemed like toy models, and the buildings shrank into miniature blocks. The higher we climbed, the more unreal it felt, as if I had been carried into another world. The moment the plane pierced through a layer of soft clouds, the sunlight spilled across the sky in golden rays. It felt magical, as if the heavens had opened just for me. My fear melted away instantly, replaced by a deep, almost childlike wonder. I whispered to myself, so this is what it feels like to fly. That takeoff wasn't just about leaving the ground, it was about discovering a freedom I had never known before. It was the realization that the world is so much bigger, so much more beautiful, than I had ever imagined. And as I pressed my forehead gently against the window, I promised myself I would never forget the magic of that very first flight into the sky. As the plane climbed higher and higher, I pressed my face closer to the window, my eyes wide with wonder. The world below was slowly disappearing, fading into a patchwork of fields, rivers, and tiny roads. And then, all at once, we reached a place I had only ever dreamed of, the clouds. At first, they looked like giant cotton balls floating gently in the sky, but as the plane pierced through them, I realized how magical it truly was. The sunlight spilled across the horizon, painting the clouds in shades of gold and silver. It felt like I was no longer in the real world but inside a painting, or maybe even a dream. The fear I had carried during takeoff dissolved completely, replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace. Looking out, I couldn't believe how close the clouds seemed. For a moment, I imagined stretching out my hand to touch them, to feel their softness. The sky above was the purest blue I had ever seen, endless and free, while the clouds below looked like a giant ocean of white. In that moment, I felt weightless, as though the plane wasn't just flying, it was gliding through heaven itself. It was impossible not to smile. The worries of the world below felt distant, almost forgotten. This wasn't just travel, this was magic. The experience of being above the clouds was like stepping into another universe, a secret world that only those who fly get to see. And I knew, deep in my heart, that this memory would stay with me forever. As the announcement came that we would soon be landing, my heart began to beat faster once again. The calmness I had felt during the flight slowly turned into a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. Through the window, I saw the clouds begin to part, revealing the familiar colors of the earth below, patches of green fields, winding roads, and tiny buildings that looked like toys from above. The aircraft slowly descended, and I could feel the gentle pressure in my ears, reminding me that I was getting closer and closer to the ground. The engines changed their sound, louder now, almost like a drumroll before the final moment. My hands clutched the armrest, but this time it wasn't fear, it was pure thrill. The runway appeared beneath us, growing bigger and clearer with every passing second. Then came the magical moment. A soft jolt, the wheels touching the earth, and the sudden rush of speed as the plane rolled safely along the ground. Everyone clapped softly, and I joined them, a smile spreading across my face. When the plane finally slowed down and came to a stop, I realized something inside me had changed. What began as fear had transformed into one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. As I walked out of the aircraft, the cool air touched my face, and I carried with me not just memories, but a deep sense of achievement. My first flight had ended, but the magic of it, the nervous laughter, the breathtaking skies, the calm above the world, would stay with me forever. It was more than just a journey from one place to another, it was the beginning of a new chapter in how I saw the world, and in how I saw myself.